Today, we're going to get pummeled. At least I'm expecting that. By one of my favorite relatively new metal bands. This is Descent by Orbit Culture. Hello everybody and welcome back to another album review / reaction here on my channel. I am so pumped for this. For those of you who have seen my most recent Metallica reaction on my channel, you'll know that the day that we recorded the Death Magnetic reaction is the day that I received this CD in the mail. And I was a little bit bummed that we were listening to Metallica instead of this band. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, just know that on my channel here for the last year or so, I have been going back through with a few of my friends, listening to all of Metallica's catalog that I had never heard before, which I know might sound crazy, but just go check some of those videos out and I think you'll realize right away why I had never heard any Metallica and that I'm absolutely true to my word when I say that I had not. However, that is not true for this band. I absolutely love Orbit Culture's second most recent album, I guess, not counting the new one, Nija. I believe that's how you pronounce it, though I'm not positive. This album shocked me when I found out about it. I heard Tank the Tech, one of my favorite YouTube reactors, react to this album, Nija, or a song from Nija, and I was like, this is amazing. So I went online, looked. Their CD wasn't that expensive on Amazon. I purchased it, got it in the mail, listened to it, and it blew my mind so much that it was actually number 2 on my list of top 12 albums of the year, which I do every year here on my channel. It was my number 2 album of the year back in 2020. So I think it came out in 2020, or was it 2021? Yeah, 2020. So I absolutely loved that album. I think it's such a special album, and I think that they are such a special band. Before I get into talking to them about them a little bit more, I just want to say if this is your first time here on my channel, know that what I'm going to do is basically sit and listen to this album all the way through from front to back. I don't plan on pausing at all. I'm going to be talking over the music a little bit, talking about what I'm hearing, reacting to the music. I am not necessarily a big lyric guy, so don't expect me to be breaking down a ton of lyrics, but we'll see if if anything catches me or strikes my interest or whatever, I'll maybe mention it. But for the most part, I'll just be talking about what I'm hearing, maybe a little bit of production things. I'm really, really, really hoping, all fingers and toes crossed, that this album sounds phenomenal. I really like the way their last album sounded. So anyway, I might talk about some production stuff. Hopefully it's all in a positive light, though, is what I was trying to get at. I don't want to dislike this album because it's not produced well. I'm hoping that it's produced really well, but it's produced by the singer and guitar player for the band, who is the same guy that produced, recorded, mixed, and mastered Nija. So I believe this album should sound pretty comparable to that, hopefully a few notches above how good that album sounded. So here on my channel, I try to upload all videos, including the audio from the album in the videos. So, sometimes I have good luck with that, sometimes I have bad luck. Recently, I've been having bad luck. So if you're watching this video and you get to a point in the video where I'm actually listening to the songs and you can't hear anything, that's because the copyright laws on YouTube are such that it didn't allow me to use this album. And I haven't figured out yet the magic formula. I can look on YouTube and see, I belong to this thing called Creator of Music Beta, I believe is what it's called, where I can look and see songs that are like whether they're okay or not to play on channels. I believe this whole album is okay to play, but for some reason YouTube doesn't like it when you use an entire album. And I understand that. It's all about an algorithm, but we're here to discuss and talk about the album and listen to it together and have a lot of fun, hopefully. So hopefully you're able to hear this album with me, but just in case you're not, and even if you can, in the description of this video, I will leave a link to purchase the album from Amazon like I did, to listen to the album on Spotify with me if you want. Maybe I'll just go to their website and leave a link for that. There will be a couple links to different things in the description so that you can listen along with me if you have to. I know that's a huge bummer, but that's one of the reasons I start the album and then I don't stop it, so that you can just start at the beginning and then let the video go. But I will also have clear markers on the timeline for every single individual song. So if you just want to hear my reaction to a particular song, feel free to skip to that moment. If you want to skip to the very end of the video, or the last section of the video, at least the last big chunk, after I'm done listening to the album, I'll give my sort of overall thoughts, my overall opinion on the album. Feel free to skip there if you want to just hear my thoughts on the album. No hard feelings. I don't really have too much else to say. Normally I film my videos with all sorts of like ancillary things. I guess the only thing for this video I have to say is I have to apologize that my facial hair is slowly growing back, and you can see this like weird white strip here. My facial hair for some reason decided that it wanted to grow back all white in certain areas. So try not to let that get too distracting. It's pretty crazy. This is all hair here. But anyway, it doesn't matter. You probably don't care about that. It doesn't really matter. I don't have anything else to show off. So let's just talk about Orbit Culture for a second. Like I said, I love Nija. I really like the way the album was produced. There was a lot of punch to it. The kick was really fantastic, the kick drum sound. I really like the way the guitar sounded as well. They were very sort of white, noisy guitars, but they really fit what the band was playing and what the band was doing. I love the vocals. I think everything was mixed in such a way that the album felt as heavy and crushing as it possibly could. I will say I think the album was a touch muddy. However, I believe that there's one song on Nija that I have on this CD called Warg Blood, and it's sort of a bonus song on here, and I'm not sure if it was made before or after, but I think Warg Blood was actually mixed a tiny bit better than the rest of this album. And so I'm hoping that song was done after the sessions that they recorded for Nija, and that this album will sound a little bit more comparable to that. I have heard absolutely nothing on Descent yet. I've been saving my listening to this for just doing this reaction, listening to the whole album. So I've heard no singles, I've heard no samples, I've heard nothing. I really love the way that Orbit Culture structured all their songs. I love the way that the last few songs on Nija sort of kind of connected together. And I don't mean like in a story words-wise. I don't really know what any of the lyrics are. And that's kind of one cool thing about them. They don't include any lyrics with their stuff at all. It's just a picture, the disc, a black background there. And the only information about the album is what it says right here on the back. And the exact same thing is true for this album as well. Just a picture on the front. Open it up. There's just a sort of little generic picture. The disc. Just a sort of a black background behind the disc. No words, and the only words are what's on the back of the disc here, on the back of the case. So no lyrics to look at, really nothing. It just basically says that everything was all music and lyrics by Nicholas Carlson, performed by Nicholas Carlson, Richard Hansen, Frederick Leonardson, and Christopher Wallerstedt. Artwork by Nicholas Carlson and Max Welliston. Mixed and mastered by Nicholas Carlson. So, which is crazy. The fact that he wrote, produced, recorded, mixed, edited it all, and mastered it. Generally, I would say that's not necessarily a good formula for having something sound as good as it can, because a lot of the times, at least when you get to the mastering stage, it's good to give your mixes and all the work you've had to a sort of a more neutral third party, or a second party, I guess it would be in this case, and let them trust them to put the final touches, the final polish on the songs. However, certain genres of music, like electronic music, it's very common for this one artist to write, perform, record, mix, edit, master, everything just themselves. And sometimes that can yield fantastic results. And like I said, I was very happy with Nija. This band is pretty special to me because they're relatively more modern and a new band compared to a lot of the metal bands that I love. Almost all of the metal bands that I truly love have been with me since I guess I was around my high school to sort of like later elementary stages. So that would be like, I love Soilwork, In Flames, Raunchy, Nemec. Nemec hasn't been a band for a while. Raunchy hasn't released an album for 10 years now. But like Soilwork, In Flames, Demon Hunter, bands like that. All who were sort of reached their peak at the sort of early 2000s, started kind of mid 90s. So, then there's a few more modern recent bands I like. Obviously things like Spirit, well, not obviously, but it's like Spirit Box. There's a few other things. But for the most part, that's sort of my era of metal that I stick to, and those bands that are still active today. But when I found Orbit Culture, they really reminded me in a lot of ways of those bands that I just mentioned, Soilwork, In Flames, things like that, some Demon Hunter for sure. And I was very excited to find them because they were a little bit more heavy, more aggressive, a little bit more pummeling than all those bands I just mentioned. They still had this sort of like clean vocals in the chorus, but he did sort of like the James Hetfield type of thing, which at least now I know, now at this time, that it was kind of his sort of singing, yelling voice, I guess, is sort of inspired by James, or at least it sounds a lot like James. I just realized I have my camera sitting on the table, and so it might be wobbling. I don't normally do that, so I can't touch the table a whole bunch or it's going to wobble. That's probably very annoying. Well, I'll have to think about that later. In any case, I'll try to be gentle with the table. Anyway, that's enough talk. I don't really have much else to say. Normally, I fill these videos with 30 minutes of intro, but I don't have that much to say for this. So let's just go ahead and get into this music. I'm super excited for this. As I said, I'm ready to be pummeled. Later tonight, actually, I have a very important recording session scheduled with two of my buddies, one who I've been doing my Metallica reactions with, and one who I sort of generally do sort of more classic albums, classic album reactions with. I'm going to be listening to Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd for the very first time tonight. And while I have all my stuff set up, I wanted to take advantage of that, and I wanted to record this video because I just can't wait any longer to listen to this album. I also, the same day the Orbit Culture album came out, the new Grace Potter album came out, so I'm very much looking forward to this. I've actually probably looking forward to listening to this even more than Orbit Culture, but I feel like the Orbit Culture people, we've had a couple people on my channel request this, so I feel like I need to get this one recorded and edited before I get to Grace Potter. So anyway, with all that being said, before we get into it, I have one more thing I have to do. Look right here on the table, and I'll be right back with you in a second. So as I went to grab my beverage, which today is just going to be a nice blue Tampico, and I have a glass with a little bit of ice in the bottom here, I realized that I have a trickle of sweat running down my forehead, which is something that may happen throughout this video because it is swelteringly hot outside right now, and normally when I record my videos I turn the air conditioner off in the house, but I decided that it would be a little bit too much of a risk to do that today with how hot it is, and also I want the house to be as cool as possible for when we're recording the Pink Floyd reaction, which, no offense to Orbit Culture, the Pink Floyd reaction, I guess, is just a tiny bit more important to me only because it is going to be involving multiple people other than just myself. So I've got my little Deadpool bandana off to the side that I can use to dab, and I'm expecting this album to be brutal, so I'm thinking that maybe I may be sweating just from listening to this. So if the air conditioner does kick on, which it probably inevitably will during the recording, if we're listening to the music and you're able to hear the music, probably won't be that big of an issue. However, for legal reasons I can't play the music, you'll probably just be sitting here listening to me breathing, rocking out, and listening to our air conditioner. So to avoid that, let's get started as soon as possible with track 1, Descending, which is interesting to have. I was looking at the tracks when I just put the CD in my CD player a little bit ago. Track 1, Descending. Track 9, Descent. Very interesting. So track 1, which seems like it might be an intro because it's just 1:39. I don't know. One other thing I wanted to say real quick. I'm excited to hear what elements to these songs what elements are going to be in these songs other than just guitar, bass, drums, vocals. And I would include acoustic guitar in the elements that aren't just like electric guitar, bass, drums, vocals. I really am excited to hear what else they throw into the songs. I really liked everything that they did on Nija, and I felt that all those little elements, the synth pads, that sort of like really cool percussive thing that they did at the beginnings of several songs, that like sort of like almost like a marching type of thing. I don't know what it was exactly, but I really liked it. It sounded very cinematic. I'm excited to see what they do. Orbit Culture, from the album Descent, track 1, Descending, now. Oh yeah. Right off the bat, that just sounds like a Orbit Culture sound, right? I like the strings. It's sort of Lord of the Rings-ish. Turn it up a little bit. Probably will regret that. Lots of low frequencies that I'm hearing here. Yeah, there's sort of like stick tapping almost, is the way I would try maybe describe what they did on their first album. Lots of low frequencies. Ooh. Just a lot of distorted drums, like explosion soundings almost. Some choir samples. I hope we get some elements of this throughout the album. That would be really nice. Okay, here we go. Let's go, everybody. We're going into track 2, Black Mountain. Ooh. Huh. Ooh. Turning it way up. I like the kick. Choral vocals. The guitars are totally getting lost. Oh no, it sounds terrible. The vocals are hid behind the music. You can't hear any definition in the guitars at all. The kick drum's too loud compared to everything else. It sounds fine what it is. Why is that sound effect thing so loud? The guitars have no definition in them at all. This sounds terrible. Hey, there's a guitar. That sounds nice. Why couldn't we have the guitar sound like that? Those sound effects are terrible. Damn it. Damn it. This is so bad. The best we can hope for at this point is that the rest of the album is not like this. That for whatever reason, track 1, they were trying to be a little bit more artistic and having these sound effects in there, but mean, why even have the guitars in there at all? I can hear kind of moments where they're doing stuff in between, but the moments these big sound effects, these big things are happening, completely drowns everything out. All right, let's cross everything we have here. That track 2 doesn't sound at all like track 3 doesn't sound at all like the first 2 tracks. Because this is terrible. If the whole album sounds like this, I don't think I'm gonna even bother listening to the whole thing, but we'll hold off on that. And there's the air conditioner to make everything even worse. Hey, that sounds a little better. The guitars definitely do have a low pass filter on them, which is a bit of a bummer. They had that on the first album too. Vocals are still too low. I'm gonna turn it up even louder, which I probably shouldn't. It's mush. Everything I'm hearing is just mush. Pure mush. The only thing you can hear is the kick drum and just a mush behind it. The mashed potatoes of music. This sounds okay. The vocals are too low, and that is just a tale as old as time in metal, especially when the person who's in charge of the mix is the one singing. They feel self-conscious about their vocals, they put them down lower than they should be in the mix. Big bummer. I could get over that, though, if the rest of the song was mixed well. This is strange because those guitars, those like lead guitar wah things. Here you really notice the volumes being too low. Sounds like there's kind of a guitar solo in there, but I can't hear it. You know what this all tells me? That it's the mastering. When you're mastering something, in order to bring the sides, usually with mastering, you want to try to make the mix feel wide. What you end up doing during mastering, essentially, to break it down to very bare, bare bones description, you're bringing up what's on the volume of everything that's on the sides. And what can happen is things in the middle can get buried a little bit depending on what you're doing. And with metal music, where you generally have one track of a little bit louder vocals. This sounds good. This sounds a bit like their first album. Very fake sounding cello patch, but I'm okay with that. I need a coaster. I'm gonna draw on my table. Notice how you hear the guitars drop in volume so much now that the kick is doing this? Because the excessive buildup of low frequencies from the kick drum. That shouldn't have happened. The kick drum should never be the most featured instrument. You know, you should be able to hear it prominently, but it shouldn't be... shouldn't be a kick drum solo. At this point, I cannot tell if there are guitars in there anymore, right? It's gonna fade out, ain't it? We'll just skip to the next one. Oh boy, this is really disappointing. One fade out. Yeah, I can hear some distorted bass in there now, I think. Unless that's like a genty, way detuned, like 7-string guitar. Oh. I can still hear the guitars. I love the ideas here, it just doesn't sound the best. This sounds probably better than definitely better than the 2 previous tracks. I would love to hear this unmastered. To hear what that would be. It'd probably be lots of low frequencies, but if there's too many low frequencies and then they had to fight them during mastering, that's the fault of the mixing engineer for not taking out enough low frequencies. I mean, there's no high frequencies in this whatsoever. The whole entire mix. it's not the worst I've ever heard. And their first album doesn't have a lot of high frequencies on it either. Piano, it's cool. Those violins are a little shrill, which is really interesting. How you can get something shrill with no high frequencies. I apologize for the air conditioning. Especially if I can't use the music in this, it would be terrible. No definition in his voice whatsoever. I can hear it, that there's a guitar solo, but I can't tell what it's doing. Really disappointing. Sorry, my nose, I'm sure, is whistling. This is cool. The idea of what's happening is really cool. It's the guitars and the vocals. And the abundance of mid-range frequencies, really. A lot of mid-range frequencies needed to be scooped out of this. Really interesting. Acceptable so far. Sorry. Vocals too low again. Nice background, overdub vocals spread wide. Ooh. I think he has it so that there's a hi-hat hit every time the kick drum hits here. Yeah. Which is interesting. Yeah. There's that hi-hat along with the kick drum again. Alright, well, so far this is definitely my favorite song, Vultures of North. Again, it gets quiet and all I can hear is the air conditioner. Okay, that was the only passable song I've heard so far. Every song's been getting better and better. But still, the beginning, the first two tracks, the first Black Mountain, unforgivable. All the guitar riffs on the first album were so crushing and amazing. The guitar is super weak on this album, I feel. That's cool. It feels fatiguing to listen to, which generally is a sign of overcompression in one way or another. Notice how it feels like you can breathe during the moments where everything kind of goes away? That song was pretty okay, too. The beginning of the chorus, when there was like a big low drop in frequency, it kind of covered everything up, and then after that cleared out, I feel like you could hear definition and things a little bit more. Boy, the air conditioner's just gonna run forever, ain't it? The Isle of Fire we're on now, by the way. Notice how this sounds so much better because the low frequency isn't just brick walling everything. This sounds way better. Now it's just mud. There's cool ideas happening here. I feel like the guitars are just... It's strange the frequencies that the guitar are. It's like you took out all the good high frequencies and all the good mid-range frequencies, and all you're left with are just muddy mush. It's a very strange way to choose to have the guitar's sound. This is cool because it's a little bit of a different vocal melody, I guess, for him. Like, slightly different vocal melody. Excuse me. This album doesn't deserve my candle. I can only light it so many more times. Undercity. Okay, I'm gonna try to focus on this. Try to appreciate what I can appreciate. I mean, this sounds a million times better. There's definition in the guitars. We'll see what happens. I can hear the bass guitar in this one. Pretty different. I like the plodding feel here. I will say that the overheads don't feel too overcompressed. It's pretty much just the low frequencies to me. And the mids, the muddiness. And the volume of the vocals for sure. Kick drum too loud. Stupid, that low drop is unnecessary. That was stupid sounding. That tinkly program cymbal is cool. Right, you can hear the hi-hat cymbal off to the left. Like this. I definitely think this song sounds better overall. The last few songs haven't been as bad. All right, track Descent. That's a cool sound. I just don't have very much to say about this. I mean, this doesn't sound that bad. Or at least closer to their first album, or the Nija. Cool, a little bit different sounding. Huh. That yeah is a little weird, but I'm not gonna complain about that. All right, Through Time, last track. I feel bad because, like, I'm not feeling it so much that I'm probably not giving it any credit where it does deserve some credit, but just, like, those first few songs were so horrific. Try to enjoy this song. It's cool. Terrible reverb. Too far away. This is just the telltale signs of a guy who's editing himself and doesn't want to have his vocals be up as loud as they should be. That's why you should have a third person work on it. Like I said, I just listened to Death Magnetic and it had the exact same issue. Although James wasn't the one mixing and mastering everything, of course. Definitely, even though I didn't necessarily care for the way Death Magnetic sounded as much, definitely sounded better than this. This is just mush again. Beautiful acoustic guitar. Okay, so I know now that our air conditioner has been running. That album's 48 minutes, and it's been running since the moment that we started this, or at least I think towards the end of track 1. So let's subtract. So our air conditioner's been running for 45 minutes. Please stop, air conditioner, so that I can do these last few bits. All right, I'm tired of waiting. I was trying to wait for the air conditioner to shut off, but I know if I probably start talking now, it will shut off. It's now been running for over 50 minutes, so hopefully it will shut off sometime soon. But anyway, yeah, that whole album was very disappointing to me. Just, it wasn't as bad as the Scar Symmetry album from earlier this year. Well, I'm not sure. That album, I think, had a lot of potential, but it was just mixed so terribly that I still, to this day, haven't even listened to the entire thing. This album, I at least managed to get through all of it. I did skip, past the last couple seconds of a few songs. But I think that sophomore slump is not the right term to put here, because I was thinking about that while I was, if you just skip to the end here, this album's terrible, in my opinion. The first track Black Mountain is unlistenable, garbage, terrible. It's I would describe it as mashed potatoes with a kick drum on top of it. It's the most mushy, nonsensical mush frequency, mid-range frequency soup thing I've ever heard in my life, with a really clear kick drum over the top of it. It's unlistenable, terrible, in my opinion. Then we had a few really interesting things. I think Sorrower, it almost feels like every song on the album got a little bit better for the first like 5 songs or so. And the second half of the album, excuse me, sorry, the phone's ringing now. Oh my God, what else could go wrong? Terrible album, air conditioning, phone ringing. Anyway, I feel like I wasn't even able to pay attention to the last half of that album because the first half was so devastating to me. This is the type of reaction I hate doing. I do not like it when albums disappoint me this much. And I was really looking forward to this. As I said, Nija was my number 2 album for 2020, I believe. So the fact that this is just so terrible is just devastating to me. I don't want to go over it a million times. I think the guitars sounded terrible. I think that they had no definition to them whatsoever. They sounded almost slightly amateur. It almost sounded like if you took the full frequency range of the guitars and you got rid of all the nice high frequencies to like give the guitar some definition, and then you went to the mid-range and you pulled out any of the nice frequencies, all that was left was just the mush frequencies that were left. There's no super lows because every song, under the entirety of almost every song, there is just this like low subsonic bass frequency that is just enormous. And I think it's supposed to make the song feel huge. Instead, what it does is it makes the song unlistenable by making the entire thing feel encompassed in this low frequency, and I just did not like the way that was done. I would rather the album sound thin without that, but the kick drum still had a lot of nice low frequencies in it, and there were a few times on the song where that big enormous low frequency, or on the album I mean, there were a few times on the album where that giant enormous low frequency all-encompassing thing wasn't there, and it felt much better, and I feel like it was used a little more sparingly towards the end of the album, and that was why I thought those songs sounded better. I feel like the riffs on the first album and the rhythmic patterns, along with the kick drum and everything, were just crushing and brutal. On this album, everything just felt pretty phoned in and kind of honestly boring-y, amateurish sort of sounding. I'm not saying that I could make anything that sounds better than this, although I definitely think I could mix a song better than that Black whatever song, Black Mountain. But, you know, and again, I don't even know what to blame this on. I would say mastering is a lot of this, the low frequencies, the lack of high frequencies. I would love to hear this unmastered and just see what happened. That would be really fascinating to hear. This is just such a bummer because I know that Orbit Culture is not necessarily like a huge band, but I feel like they're big enough that this shouldn't have happened. I feel like every album from a band should always sound better than their previous album, with the only exception being if a band was on a big record label and then they get dropped or they leave and then they have to release something themselves independently. Then I can understand their quality going down, hopefully only a little bit. In this case, I believe Nija sounded really great. You know, it wasn't perfect, and I did say that it sounded muddy as well, but it sounded muddy in a slightly different way, and it was much more consistent, I feel. This album had songs that were unlistenable, and then a few songs that were pretty okay. The vocals were low across the entire album. I think there were 2 or 3 guitar solos. Those were just as low. They were the same volume as the vocals, which is what you're supposed to do. That's a nice rule when you're editing or mixing metal or any kind of music, really. The guitar solo, or any sort of like a solo featured instrument, especially if it's going to be in the middle of the mix, in the center of the mix, should be about the same volume as the solo vocals, the lead vocals. And they were. It's just that in this case, both of them were too low to even tell what was happening during the big parts of the songs. Once that all-encompassing low thing came in, everything was just smushed so much that you couldn't even tell what was happening. Excuse me, I keep trying not to cough. I don't know why. I've been coughing the last few days. It's very strange. So the volume of the vocals was too low the entire time, to the point where I'm like, come on, man. You know, like I mentioned multiple times while listening, it felt to me like a case of the person who's mixing and doing all of this is the guy that's singing. He feels self-conscious at least a little bit about his singing. So what does he do? He brings the vocals down. the volume of everything. The kick drum was too loud. It was ridiculous during points. And the kick and the snare, compared to each other, the way they sounded, the kick had more high frequencies in it than the snare, which is something I feel should never happen. Now, I didn't really mention that while we were listening because that was sort of like the least of my issues. I do think the kick and the snare sounded good relatively compared to everything else. But the guitars were just so bland. And then all the other things that were happening, there were interesting things happening, but there were things that were too loud, which were strange. There were like drones and things that were a high frequency that I guess I said almost sounded shrill, which is incredible to have something sound shrill when there's no high frequencies on the album whatsoever. So this whole album was just a bunch of anomalies, a bunch of things that were disappointing to me. And I do feel bad because I definitely know I didn't give some of the songs that I think I would have liked more a fair shake. If you watch me listen to that, you can probably really tell that I was disinterested in a lot of what was happening. What I'll probably do with this, you will already have watched it, but what I'll probably do with this edit is where there's long stretches where I'm not saying anything, I'll just fast forward them or just cut them out, because it doesn't do any good to have me sitting there listening, not making any faces or noises or talking about anything. At that point, you might as well just go listen to the album on your own. Again, I'm sorry I keep hitting the camera and it keeps shaking. I'm very sorry. I won't be able to do this again in future videos. So I'm just going to leave it there and say that very disappointing. I hate it when I record a negative album reaction. I hate it. I don't like it. In the case with something like with Metallica and stuff, it's fun to talk about things like Saint Anger, like we had a lot of fun talking about it. And I would definitely say that my opinion of that album is negative overall, but that was very fun to talk about. And the album was so crazy, it gave us a lot of things to talk about. But already this year, several times I've listened to VNV Nation, which was mixed so terribly. Scar Symmetry, which was mixed so terribly. The Heavy's new album, which was just awful and unlistenable. There was no frequencies above 1,000 hertz, 800 hertz. It was terrible. And this is just, unfortunately, falling in the same line as that. Just absolutely disappointing to me. I'm so disappointed. I was expecting this album to I said in the Metallica video, I think that this album could have been my number one if it was better than their first album. That's how high my expectations were. So while the air conditioner is still running, I might as well end this video so that it can run through the entire duration of the entire thing. Thank you very much for watching. I'm sorry this was a negative reaction. If anyone from this band ever sees this, I am so sorry, but you heard what I said and you heard my opinion of it. I love Nija. That album is a special album to me. I will always love that album. I think when I first discovered this band, I went back and I bought one of their EPs, that red thing. It said something, the most recent thing that they had recorded, I believe. Or maybe it was something they had recorded after that. No, it couldn't have been. I think it was right before that. Anyway, I bought some EP or something off of their Bandcamp page, I think, and I downloaded the FLAC files, and I haven't really ever listened to that, but I don't know. Sorry for the camera shaking. All right, I'm going to end the video. Thank you very much. Hopefully I'll see you next time. Now off to some Pink Floyd.